A big thanks to NiSi for sponsoring this video. The problem with macro photography is that getting your entire subject in focus is physically impossible due to the shallow depth of field that comes with high magnification. Some people might say that using a smaller aperture can help with this, but it often reveals too much of the background, making the shots less appealing. That's where focus stacking comes in, and this video is all about the why, when, and how to use this technique, from setting up the shots in the field to blending the images in post-processing to achieve sharpness throughout the subject. Alright, so enough gardening. I found my first subject, which is this small green heart-shaped leaf that I decided to place onto another leaf. I chose this tree to place my subject on because it's a little bit higher on the ground, and if you saw my shorter form videos for the past probably 2 months, you saw that I was working a lot on the ground, and I'm kind of getting tired of working on the ground, so that's why I'm putting this one a little bit higher. It's going to be easier to film too. I'm going to be careful and try to place the green leaf, which is the subject, right in the middle of the brown leaf. Maybe I'll have to play around a little bit. Yeah, something just like that. All right, so in terms of equipment, what I'm going to be using is my 70 to 200 millimeter f4 lens. Pair this with the NiSi 77 millimeter close-up filter. I'm going to put this one, and it's going to give me roughly a 1:1 magnification at 200 millimeter. Plus, I'm going to use a focusing rail, again from NiSi, to be able to fine-tune both the composition and be able to focus stack the image manually. Now I want to play around a little bit with the subject because I want this heart-shaped leaf to be right in the middle of the other brown leaf. Maybe something just like that. Now that I'm pretty confident about the composition, I'm going to use some lighting. This one is a light panel from Amaran. They call it the Amaran ACE 25C, C meaning color, so it's an RGB light. When I'm using larger lights like these ones, it's hard to get these micro contrast. That's why I decided to hide a little bit of the light and only use this portion. So in order to secure the first light, I'm going to use this bungee around this tree. Now I'm going to be able to mount this light and make it stick right there. This one should be good, just like that. All right, now for the second light, I'm planning on using a little bit of color on the background in order to create a color contrast. I did a hole to make sure that the light doesn't spill all over the background. And there you go. All right, now that the shot is finally set up, I'm going to try to show you in real time the effect of the lighting on the subject. So when I'm doing shots like that with artificial lighting, I always like to underexpose the shot slightly to make room for the lighting. So I'll start with this light over there just to lit up the subject nicely, maybe something just like that. And for the other light, I'm going to try to use a little bit of color, maybe try to make a color contrast to help separate the subject from the background, but I don't want to get too crazy with this one, so let's choose something maybe on the cooler side. All right, now I'm ready to take the shot, but I have a small problem. Well, it's not a small problem, it's kind of a big problem because this tree right here, which I set up everything on it, is kind of moving a little bit in the wind. And obviously, when you're doing focus stacking, you don't want your subject to move, or to move as little as possible, because it's probably going to take me like a minute and a half to do the whole stack. And if the subject move during the stack, it's going to be hard to stack in post-processing. I'm going to take the shot anyways because it probably took me like 35 minutes to set up the whole thing, but fingers crossed that the wind is going to be on my side. What I like to do before starting the stack is always try to know how many shots I'm going to need, to cover the whole thing. So in order to do that, I'm always focusing on the closest part to the subject, to the lens. And then with this wheel right here, I know that one full turn is going to move the camera 1 millimeter closer to the subject. I'm just going to try to see how many turns I need to get the whole thing in focus. So it's going to be 6 full turns at least. So it's going to be moving the camera 6 millimeter. But obviously, I don't want to take a photo and make a full turn and take another photo. I'm probably going to cut it in half to make sure I have all the subject in focus. So I'm going to move this big knob half a turn each time and see if it works. While I'm bracketing this shot right there, let's talk a little bit about these close-up filters. So when NiSi approached me about a month and a half ago to try these filters, I thought it would be fun to show you guys another way to achieve closer focus distance, without spending too much on more expensive macro lenses. Although they have different magnification, their purpose is the same, which is allowing you to get a little bit closer to your subject and achieve focus. So they sent me both a 49mm thread filter and a 77mm thread filter. So I already have this 77mm filter on my 70-200mm f4 lens, which gives me roughly a 1:1 magnification factor. That basically means on a full frame camera, which is 36mm wide, you can fill the sensor with a piece of chocolate, a walnut, a Zelda hard container necklace, or this small clay camera, obviously if they're all 36mm wide. For this 49mm thread filter, at first I wasn't sure why to use this one because it only fits on my 100mm macro lens. But when I tried it, it literally takes my lens, which is a 1:1 magnification, and made it a 2:1 magnification, which is pretty cool. It's easy when you weight them that this is quality glasses. They all come with adapter rings, so you're going to be able to put it on whatever lens you have. So in terms of image quality, you're about to see the image I'm taking right there, so you're going to be able to judge for yourself, but they're pretty amazing. I know there's a lot of landscape photographers out there who's interested in macro photography but don't want to carry extra gear in their bag. But these are really interesting because they're small, obviously. And if you're going on a shoot and it's a cloudy day, let's say, I think these are a great option, to stick in front of your longer lens and explore the macro world. So that's pretty much it for these close-up filters. If you want to give them a try, please go in the description and I'll put a link so you can learn a little bit more about them. Now let's get back to the shot. All right, so now that's the last shot right there. Fingers crossed that the subject didn't move too much during the stack. The wind kind of died down a little bit. I'm gonna try to find something else, but while I'm doing that, I'm gonna show you how I go about focus stacking and post-processing. I'm gonna show you the whole process, and I'm gonna show you the result of this image. So now, let's pack everything and see what I can find next. Now there's more than one way to blend focus bracketed images in post-processing, but for this first shot, I'll show you how I first learned to do it in Photoshop. So to start, after opening the bracketed images in Lightroom, I select them all and open them as layer in Photoshop. Once that's done, I ensure all the layers are selected and then auto-align them. After alignment, I go to auto blend layers and use the stack blending method, making sure to check the seamless tones and color box and then hit OK. I'll let Photoshop do its job, and after a couple of minutes, I have a nearly seamless image ready to open in Lightroom to make final edits. A little later in the video, I'll show you how I currently achieve more accurate and seamless results with a little less effort. And please feel free to share your stacking workflow if you think there's a better way to do it. All right, so for my next shot, I really do want to try this other close-up filter that I'm going to pair with my 100mm macro. It's going to give me a 2:1 magnification. So it's going to be hard to find a subject with that, but I'm going to go handheld and scout a little piece of moss right there. There's a lot of mushrooms there, tiny mushrooms, and trying to find something interesting. And then I'm going to put the camera on the tripod. But first, I'm going to try to see if I can find something. It's going to be a challenge because this is so much high magnification that slight movements are going to make things blurry. I'm just seeing 3 small mushrooms right there. Just gonna try to find them. That's the hardest part, really. I'm trying to find them with the camera and I can see them. It's like a roller coaster right now. Where are they? Oh, right there. Yeah, they're gonna make a nice subject, I think. So now I'm gonna put my camera on the tripod and try to make a nice composition with them. All right, so I already know that I'm gonna need to inverse my center column to get this shot, and also to get the center of gravity a little bit lower so everything's going to be nice and steady Here I'm going to use again the focusing rail for two reasons. First, it's going to be easier for me to dial in the composition because once I find the subject, I'll be able to quickly move forward or backward in order to create a nice composition, and I'm going to be able to stack the image using the micro adjustment wheel in the back. So far, the hardest thing working with this kind of magnification is to find an interesting composition because you move the camera a hair and it's a completely different scene. So I think having this focusing rail is gonna make my life a lot more easier. I'm gonna show you in real time. If I push the side button to release the carriage here, I'm gonna be able to quickly move forward or closer to the subject. So maybe something just like that. And from there, I'll be able to play around with the composition maybe a little bit more and start to think about the focus bracketing. All right, now I'm gonna use one light that I'm gonna put on this flexible arm right there. I wanna take a moment to thank one of my friends who kindly custom made one of these so I can easily dig in the ground and it stays in place. Thanks, Ivor, for that. So before I show you the effect of lighting on this shot, I'm going to quickly talk about the Amaran Ace 25C lights. So basically, if you saw my last shorter form videos, you saw that I was working with these lights quite a bit. The light comes in this small package with a small tripod like this one that you can easily snap in place. And what I really do love about them, especially for macro photography, is the honeycomb grid attachment, because most of the time in macro photography, you want to have more directional light. So I think this adapter is really cool. You just have to pop it right in place just like that. I already mentioned that this light is RGB, so you're going to be able to put any color you like. You can use it as a power bank. You can plug your iPhone and charge up your iPhone. If you want to learn more about the Amaran Ace 25C lights, I'll put a link in the description. All right, now, again, I'll play a little bit with the intensity of the light to help separate the subject from the background. Maybe something just like that. So now, just to make things a little more interesting, I'm gonna put some steel wool right behind the subject and try to create some nice highlights. I just noticed one thing. When I'm leaning forward to take the photo, I'm pushing against the ground and this tripod legs is really close to me, and it's kind of moving the camera a little bit each and every time I'm moving forward. So I got to be careful because I don't want to disturb the camera and have to do it again after. A lot of people ask me why I always focus stack my macro shot, and this is a personal choice, but I really do like the soft background. Let's just say I'm using f4 or f2.8. It's going to be hard to have that subject all in focus without focus stacking. But some people say, why don't you use a smaller aperture? Which is true, we'll get maybe a little bit more of a subject in focus, but the background is not that appealing. So that's why I'm focus stacking. All right, so I'm using a 2-second timer, obviously to not introduce any shake. Another thing to consider is the lighting. Right now I'm seeing that the clouds are moving. I hope the sun is not gonna come out, because if the lighting change in the middle of the stack, obviously it's not gonna work. It's probably gonna take me like 2 to 3 minutes to do this one. This is a perfect example where it's impossible to do a focus bracketing without a focusing rail, except obviously if your camera has an internal focus bracketing feature, which I have for this one. But today I want to work with the rail because I know that a lot of you guys don't have any autofocus lens. All right, finally, fingers crossed that the lighting didn't change for this one. Okay, let's load up the shots in Lightroom and try the other post-processing workflow that I mentioned earlier. First, I still have to select the images I want to use to create a stack, and for this one, I took a total of 80 images. After review, I think the last mushroom don't need to be completely in focus, so I'm only selecting about 40 images for this one. After that, I export the file to Luminar's Neo Focus Stacking plugin and then simply click Stack and let the software do its magic. Once the stack is complete, I then open the images back in Lightroom and do some minor cleaning and color correction. This method is the one I prefer over the Photoshop workflow because in my opinion, it is faster and produces better results right off the bat. At this point, please feel free to share the workflow you use and your thoughts on the ones I tried today. Focus stacking is not the solution for all photography problems, but if you're like me and enjoy macro photography, sooner or later, you'll reach a point where physics doesn't allow you to capture in a single click what you envision in your mind. I hope this video will inspire you to explore the tiny world and try these techniques for yourself. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep moving.